It was a one-way mission, a flight with no planned return. For Japan's kamikaze pilots in the final desperate days of World War II, their purpose was simple and absolute: to die for the Emperor. They were trained to transform their planes into human-guided missiles, with each mission designed to end in a fiery impact against an enemy warship. But a surprising number of kamikaze pilots did return. What happened when the men destined for a glorious death failed? What awaited a pilot who survived the mission he was never meant to come back from? The answer wasn't a hero's welcome or a traitor's execution. It was something far more complicated. By late 1944, Japan was losing the war. Its most experienced pilots were gone, its aircraft hopelessly outmatched. In a desperate attempt to turn the tide, the military embraced a terrifying tactic: the tokkōtai, or special attack units, known to the world as the kamikaze. The pilots were often incredibly young, with minimal training, and were indoctrinated with the Bushido Code, a warrior ethos valuing loyalty, honor, and sacrifice above all. Propaganda painted them as divine winds, selfless heroes eager to give their lives to protect their homeland. Their mission was absolute: take off, find an allied ship, and crash into it. There was no plan B, but in war, things rarely go according to plan. A significant number of pilots did come back, their planes sputtering back to the airfield with the pilots still alive. What happened next depended almost entirely on a single question: why did they return? There were two main reasons a pilot might survive: legitimate failure, or what the military deemed cowardice. The most common reason for returning was something beyond the pilot's control. Mechanical failures were frequent in the worn-out aircraft, impossible weather could obscure targets, or a pilot might be intercepted and forced to retreat. In these cases, a credible story meant there was usually no punishment. Japan couldn't afford to waste a scarce resource like a trained pilot, even a rookie. Their mission was simply rescheduled, sending them out to face death another day. But the second reason for returning was far more dangerous: coming back out of fear. A pilot who faltered, unable to complete the mission, faced a brutal reality. Formal executions were not the norm, but these men were often branded as cowards, subjected to intense public humiliation and physical abuse. The shame was immense, not just for the pilot, but for his family, who could also face repercussions to pressure the pilot into complying. These men were often reassigned to new squadrons to increase peer pressure, ensuring they wouldn't simply disappear on the next flight. While documented executions for returning were rare, the threat was ever present. Some accounts tell of pilots who returned multiple times, facing harsher treatment with each failure. In at least one reported, though not widely verified instance, a pilot who returned 9 times was ultimately executed. The pressure these young men faced is almost impossible to comprehend today, a side of history often overlooked. If you find these hidden stories from the past as compelling as we do, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what we uncover next. It's a myth that every kamikaze pilot was a fanatic, eager to die. While some were driven by extreme nationalism, many were not. First-hand accounts from survivors reveal they were often motivated by a simple desire to protect their families from the horrific atrocities they were told would accompany an Allied invasion. Many were students, pressured or essentially forced into service. An officer would ask for volunteers in a room packed with peers and superiors, making refusal almost impossible. Survivor Kazuo Odachi recalled that an initial request for volunteers was met with stunned silence before threats and coercion secured their compliance. To help ensure the missions were carried out, some pilots were given a ceremonial drink of sake before their final flight, meant to dull their senses and their fear. The fate of a kamikaze pilot who returned from his mission was a grim lottery. For some, a mechanical fault earned a brief reprieve and another scheduled flight toward their own destruction. For others, A moment of perfectly human fear led to beatings, public shaming, and immense psychological torment. After the war, their struggle continued. Many survivors faced decades of stigma from a society that didn't know what to do with men who were supposed to have died for their country. They were a living reminder of a devastating national defeat. The story of the surviving kamikaze is a tragic, complex chapter of the war, a powerful reminder of the human beings caught in the gears of a desperate war machine, forced to navigate an impossible choice between honor, duty, and the simple will to live. If this glimpse into the untold fates of failed kamikaze pilots had you gripping your seat, hit like, enlist with subscribe, and sound off in the comments on which hidden chapter of history we should expose next, because the past only lives when we keep digging.